Hey, this is C&D Channel. I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my post-fight analysis for UFC on Fox 14. Overall, good card. Lots of first-round finishes here. A lot of spectacular finishes here. Prospects, especially on the prelim card, did really well. Like Tumanov, Amir Khani, Krylov, Tysonov, Bektek. They did really good. You got a new #1 contender for John Jones and Anthony Johnson, who is a fresh challenger and a legit threat to him. So overall, I thought it was a good card. There was one grinder, there was a couple two grinder fights, Bader versus Davis, and Pesa versus Arokin after the first round. Another thing to know about this card, lots of upsets, actually. I mean, this was filled with upsets. I managed to actually get 8 out of 12 overall picks. I actually called a couple upsets. I was actually a bit surprised by a couple of them. But the ones I missed were Anthony Johnson versus Gustafsson, Ryan Bader versus Phil Davis, Sam Cecilia versus Akira Kurosani, and Victor Pesta over Konstantin Arokin. Didn't do great on the main card, unfortunately, but my overall picks weren't too bad. Actually, I only missed one on the prelims, which is pretty cool. Bonuses. There was no fight of the night bonus, which is a bit unfortunate because I thought that Albert Tumanov versus Nico Musoke should have probably been fight of the night had they given a fight of the night. There were 4 performance of the night bonuses, though, which is understandable because there are a lot of great finishes here. Anthony Johnson, Gegard Mousasi, Makwan Amirkhani, and Kenny Robertson each got their $50,000 bonus for performance of the night. Other things to note, judging was surprisingly good in this event. Tumanov fought Musoke. It went to decision, and you're thinking, oh, Musoke's a hometown guy. Nope. 29-28 across the board for Albert Tumanov. Very fair scorecard. While Bader, I know a lot of people actually gave Davis, thought that Davis should have got the win over Bader. I thought it should run a draw. That wasn't too contentious because, honestly, that fight, Bader versus Davis, really the way it was going could have just gone either way. I was kind of glad how they scored Siri versus Beal, Siri was on the bottom a good amount of times, and then two judges still gave him a 30-27. Very fair there. The Bektik versus Redmond fight, I probably would have liked to see more 30-26 scorecards. One guy did give a 30-25, which is actually pretty fair. The other judges gave it 30-27. Fair enough, would have liked to see more 10-8 rounds, but that's just me nitpicking, really. But overall, the judging was actually remarkably good. There were a couple arguable early ref stoppages with Mousasi versus Henderson, and then Joe Rogan making this big thing over Amir Khani versus Ogle. Gotta say, I hate always harping on it. The commentary. Joe was on an off night today. I mean, the way he just kind of crapped on Mirsad Bektik. Kind of rained on Amir Khani's parade over getting that 8-second knockout. He just wasn't having a great night. And speaking of not having great nights, Swedish fighters went 0 for 3. Gustafsson lost, Akira Kurosani lost, and Musoke lost for Swedish fighters. So, not good there for them. And I think that the last card on Sweden, only one Swedish fighter won or something like that. Another interesting thing to note here, it's something I didn't realize until someone pointed it out, but if I'm not mistaken, and maybe I'm wrong here, but there were no Brazilian fighters on this card. None at all. I mean, obviously it's not I mean, it's in like Sweden, you know, like Europe, Eastern Europe, or you know, like that area. But I found that a bit surprising. You know, just there's so many Brazilian fighters on the roster. I'm just so used to seeing them on cards and hearing Portuguese. You know, that's like, hey, wait, I'm not hearing Portuguese this time. I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting thing to note. So let's get started. So Anthony Rumble Johnson defeated Alexander the Mauler Gustafsson by TKO in the first round. I mean, a lot of the narrative does go to Johnson having this like tremendous power, and that's true. But he has a technical skill to back up that power. He also has this really weird thing where, like, when he gets fouled, especially Johnson gets poked in the eye a lot. I mean, I've never seen a fighter get poked in the eye so much than like Anthony Rumble Johnson. I mean, the Kevin Burns fight, you know, and whatnot. He gets poked in the eye a lot, and when, you know, after he gets poked in the eye, he goes into this like rage mode. You know, that's kind of what happened. You know, it was just kind of back and forth. They're kind of feeding each other out, and then like he gets poked in the eye. Gustafsson goes for this pretty lazy like front kick and just gets smashed by a counter punch. And from there, he's just kind of on roller skates. He's fighting back actually though. Gustafsson, I saw him hit Johnson with an uppercut, and Johnson just walked through it. Speaks well for Johnson's chin because he was walking through a couple good punches from Gustafsson when he had Gustafsson hurt. The finish saw Gustafsson, the ref giving Gustafsson every chance he could to recover. And you know what? I know some guys in a different fight, some guys are going to be like, oh man, the ref let it go on too long. I'm going to say this, and I said it with like Rashad Evans, Forrest Griffin's another good example. In bouts with higher stakes, I think in certain situations and context, I think the referee should do that. And I think this is one of those, like, bouts of higher consequence. I think the referee has fairly good reason to keep a bout going on longer than it has to. Obviously, there's some exceptions. Like Pat Kern versus Joe Warren's probably a good example of not letting it go on longer than it really had to. And that was about a relatively high stakes as far as Bellator is concerned. This one, I mean, yeah, the ref could have stopped it, but now what ends up happening is like, okay, there's no question. Like, Johnson won the fight. You know what I mean? That's the thing. He's going to fight John Jones next. No question. No debatable stoppage here. He was getting those under the armpit punches while Gustafsson was kind of in the turtle, like a turtle, defensive turtle position. No question. Johnson won, you know, won the fight. So yeah. Johnson against Jones next. Gustafsson, there's some interesting fights for him, but he should definitely fight more at higher levels. You can give him like Daniel Cormier, Rashad Evans, Glover Teixeira next. If you want to give him a winner, it actually wouldn't be the worst thing to do Gustafsson versus Bader. I think that wouldn't be a bad fight either. Interesting thing to note was John Jones when he was tweeting this night about, for one, he was bashing Phil Davis. He's saying, oh, your nickname shouldn't be Mr. Wonderful anymore. And then with Gustafsson, after he lost, John Jones was tweeting like, I am not impressed. I'm not impressed with your performance. Because it's a little get back. Because Gustafsson actually tweeted that to John Jones after John Jones won. So Anthony Johnson wasn't fond of that. The matchup should be interesting. You know, Johnson's not exactly short like Cormier. He's not as tall as Gustafsson and tall as Jones. But I don't know if he's going to really tower over him. Johnson's, 6'1", 6'2"? Good reach. You know, actually almost closer reach as Gustafsson had. Arguably, well, hardly arguable that he has more power. You can't sling leather blow for blow with Anthony Johnson, you know. So, you know, the reach thing and the height and reach thing I don't think is going to be, like, so huge. But obviously it's John Jones, you know. His clinch game is insane. I would actually imagine that Anthony Rumble Johnson is going to try and fight on the outside against Jones and try and hit some of those power hit shots. In my opinion, Jones' best bet is probably taking the fight to the ground. Obviously, with Jones, though, he has a tendency to like to fight opponents and beat them at their own game. So, in a sense, that's really interesting. I wonder if he's going to get into like a range-striking, sometimes brawling firefight with Anthony Johnson. I don't know if it's smart, but it makes the bout very interesting. And like I said, dude, it's pretty much the last credible, fresh challenger to John Jones. He's already beaten Ryan Bader. And if you watch Bader versus Davis, no one had the impression that one of these guys should fight John Jones or has any chance against him. Phil Davis is the next best fresh challenger for Jones. If you want to go rematches, of course, Gustafsson rematch would be very interesting. After that, I mean, you have guys like OSP, Jimmy Manuel versus the winner of Manuel versus Blachowicz, you know. So it's very slim pickings after Johnson. I mean, seriously, after Johnson, he's the last like fresh challenger that can give Jones problems. Then there's like Gustafsson in a rematch that could give Jones problems. So very interesting. Great win for Johnson, and I think he's going to be a very interesting test for John Jones. Gotta also like Johnson being very humble and sympathetic towards Alexander Gustafsson after Gustafsson lost. He's showing some maturity, obviously. You know, it's got to be said though, because obviously Johnson has had problems with domestic violence and domestic disputes and whatnot. Jones, obviously, with the cocaine thing and whatnot. I want to see the fight. I want to see Jones versus Johnson. Whatever's happening outside of the cage, stay clean, guys. Just whatever you're doing, just I don't know what they're doing, but don't get into trouble in the next couple months. So this fight gets delayed or doesn't happen or something. Just keep everything together, please. You know, I want to see the fight. It's a very interesting fight to me. Just whatever's going on outside in their personal lives, just keep it together, you know, so we can see the fight. I'm saying this as a fan. Please, you know. Next round after that, Gegard Mousasi defeated Dan Henderson by TKO in the first round. You know what's cool? I was actually watching some slow-mo GIFs on the stoppage, and I gotta say, it was a fine stoppage. Actually, I mean, some questioned the stoppage, and then like when you watch the slow-mo GIFs, I mean, it was like Henderson was just really out. I mean, like, obviously not out, but I mean, he was just wobbly. I mean, we've seen him come back, but he's getting older. Chins don't get better, they get worse. And Henderson's chin isn't getting better. The guy gets dropped a good amount of times now. he's tough as nails, but I also felt that Mousasi would just keep hitting him, and he might just be put out really badly. Henderson has this really bad tendency to really rush into his strikes, where he kind of like runs in, kind of throws a left or feints a left to set up the right hand, and he's running forward as he does it. He got caught with an uppercut from Vitor Belfort because of that. And he just got caught with that right hand from Mousasi for doing that. Not gonna lie, I think Dan Henderson should probably retire at this point. If he's gonna fight even like decent competition, you know, I can't really see him winning against top middleweights, dude. Like the top 10 middleweight is getting really good now. Guys like Rocco, Jacare, Yoel Romero, even Tim Kennedy's not too bad. Maybe he beats Bisping. I don't know if they want to go with a rematch there. Heck, I'd probably pick Dalloway to beat Henderson at this point. Maybe even Laties to beat Henderson at this point. So yeah, you know, that's the thing with Dan Henderson. It's just he's getting older. His chin's not getting better. He's getting slower too, and he's getting more and more reckless. With that said, good performance from Mousasi. Some weird controversy with this eye poke thing, but during the fight it is a small thing, but it didn't really, you know, at the end of the day it was kind of a moot point, I guess. With that said, with Mousasi, the winner of Bisping versus Dalloway is probably his best next fight. Or he can get the winner of Laties versus Boach. That'd be pretty cool. Brad Tavares is coming off a win over Nate Marquardt, so Tavares versus Mousasi wouldn't be too bad as well. More fighters around that level. I mean, if you want to give him like a Yoel Romero, you can do that, or something like that. You know, but otherwise, I think the more appropriate guys would be like the Bispings, the Dalways, the Laties, the Boaches, you know, guys like that. With Henderson, I mean, I guess you can give him like Dalloway or the loser of Laties Boach, I suppose. Give him Nate Marquardt, and Henderson Marquardt would work, I suppose. If he wants, you know, it seems like he's sticking around, so that's probably where I'd go. If he wants to go back to 205, he can do that too, I guess. Next fight after that, Ryan Bader defeated Phil Davis by split decision. There's a lot of guys I actually thought that Davis should have won. There's a contingent that thought Bader should have won, but I wasn't too down on this decision. It could have gone either way. This fight, though, is a really tepid fight. Both these guys, they both kind of neutralize each other's wrestling. They both have just decent enough striking, but it's really robotic. From both of them. They just have this, they don't throw the smoothest combinations. I'd say Davis has the better kicks, whereas like Bader has the better hands. When they were grappling, like near the end, it was good. You know, it's like they should have just like grappled with each other, and it would probably have been a pretty good fight, because I can't imagine these guys being able to hold each other down. So you can actually see some good escapes and fighters getting back to their feet and whatnot. But yeah, it wasn't a great fight, and on paper, I didn't think this would be a good fight either. There's a good argument for a draw here. I honestly, if it were up to me, and I'd give it a draw. Like round 1 to Bader, round 2 to Davis, and round 3 a draw. If I were to give it to, if I had to give it to someone, I actually kind of lean towards Bader. I picked Davis to win. Kind of leaned a little more towards Bader. You know, I watched all this twice actually. So the first time I saw it, it's Bader. I leaned towards Bader in the 3rd round. I thought he just got the cleaner punches. But the second time, you know, I definitely saw Davis's offense a bit more You know, I saw the potency of his, I guess, if that's a word, of his offense a little more. This is a really strange thing with both these guys because they're like, there's such a difference in level from Jones, Johnson, Gustafsson, Cormier to the rest of the division. And then there's Bader and Davis. And then there's everyone else. So everyone's at this like different tier that's really far away from each other. What I mean is like, maybe Bader beats Rashad Evans. Maybe. I don't know where to put, at this point, I don't know where to put Rashad Evans. I would put him up with like Johnson, Gustafsson, Cormier, like in his prime, easily. You know? I don't know where to put him now. He did lose a little nog, you know. Teixeira's probably around there too, you know. Teixeira, Bader, Davis are kind of in that area, you know, or like Teixeira beat Bader, Bader beat Davis, but Davis beat Teixeira. And then Rashad Evans is somewhere around there that's hovering in between there, you know, because I just don't know how he's going to perform after being out for so long. And then after that, there's like OSP, Jimmy Manoa, Jan Blachowicz, Pat Cummins is in there somewhere. Yeah, like there's definitely different tiers in light heavyweight. And like outside of that top 4/5, if you want to put Evans there, you just know that like guys like Bader and Davis probably don't beat that top 4. I mean, I don't see Bader or Davis beating Cormier. I've already saw Davis lose to Johnson. Maybe they beat Gustafsson at this point. Okay, obviously Davis has beaten Alexander Gustafsson. Okay, however, I personally feel that Alexander Gustafsson has surpassed Phil Davis at this point. His striking's a lot better. His takedown defense is just that much stronger. And his overall grappling is that much stronger. Whereas Phil Davis still shoots from the outside. Pretty badly, too. And still has some extremely robotic striking. A lot of the criticisms I've had for Phil Davis' striking are the same criticisms I've had for striking last year. Like, he makes very, very, very small, incremental, like, very small improvements in his striking. I see improvements in it, but it's still robotic. He's still thinking too much. It just doesn't seem natural for him at all. And he still reacts very, like, I would say badly to getting hit. I mean, the guy flinches a lot and whatnot. Like, he doesn't take getting hit very well. And the point I was trying to make is that, like, Bader, Davis, and Teixeira's there too. Like, I don't see him beating those top 4 guys. I just don't. They're kind of stuck. Like, if Davis won, he's just kind of stuck. It's like, I don't think anyone after this performance wants to see Ryan Bader fight John Jones. Not like, I mean that in a very general sense. Same with Phil Davis. You know, like, no one gets this impression that, like, these guys are on that level. You know, they're very good at wrestling, but they can get stuffed. Their striking's still robotic. You know, it's not. They kind of have some grinding fights too. You know. They're kind of. I mean, Bader's he's gonna move up in the rankings, but at the same time, he's kind of, in my opinion, he's kind of stuck at where, you know, he's pretty much where he is, where he first started. You know, like, where he is now is pretty much where he started. He's probably gonna fight like a Gustafsson next, or maybe Daniel Cormier. Probably lose, because he loses to the very top guys. And Tito Ortiz, of course. And, you know, it's just kind of like he holds the gate. You know, he'll beat your OSPs, Phil Davis, and anyone below him. He'll probably beat Manuel. He'll probably beat Black Witch. He'll beat Latifi. He'll beat Pat Cummins, probably. And anyone else coming up. He'll probably beat Shogun. He already beat Lil Nog. But he probably won't beat those very top guys. And that's the way I see it. I would like to see Bader get Rashad Evans next. I'm a bit curious to see where Rashad Evans is at this point of his career. You know, I think that's probably one of the better appropriate matches for Bader at this point. With Davis, I mean, maybe give him an OSP. If you want to go with Cormier, you can. Rematch with Gustafsson, you can. Maybe the loser Manuel versus Black Witch. Next fight after that, Sam Cecilia defeated Akira Kurosani by knockout in the first round. You know, in my predictions, I actually said that I didn't think Kurosani's chin was bad. It's just what I said, and I know I insulted some people by saying this. It's not bad, but he's really fragile. That's what I said. I don't know. Maybe he just has a bad chin at this point. Granted, he's fighting this really heavy-handed guy in Sam Cecilia. That's the thing. Sam Cecilia, when he hits you clean, you fall down. That's the type of fighter Sam Cecilia is. He's really rugged. He doesn't have the cleanest technique, but he hits really hard. He has really bad defense. And he can make a fight ugly, especially if he's on the inside. There's not much to say about these guys. They're both like lower tier guys, though. You know, Sam Cecilia just lost to, was it Kakuno? Right? He's lost to Kakuno before this, and Kurosani's now on like this 3-fight losing streak. Sam Cecilia has lost to likes of like Cole Miller and other like mid-level fighters as well. They're not. These guys at this point really aren't prospects at this point. I'd say Sam Cecilia is probably more of a gatekeeper at this point, just because he's tough. And, you know, he'll make it a fight. You know, for any up-and-coming guy to fight a Sam Cecilia, he's a tough guy. You do have to mind your P's and Q's. Akira Kurosani, you know, besides being Swedish, I don't really know what else he brings to the octagon. I wouldn't say he's a gatekeeper per se. He doesn't have that like toughness quality that most gatekeepers have. He's a good, you know, it's kind of funny with Kurosani. He generally looks good until he gets knocked out. In my opinion, 3-fight losing streak with all 3 losses being by KO or TKO. Besides being Swedish, he doesn't bring too much else to the table. To be perfectly honest with you, he's not a prospect. He's not much of a gatekeeper. I don't even really put him under fun action fighter. Maybe you can classify him, give him that much. In all honesty, I don't think they're gonna do it though. But I think he should probably get cut. I don't think he's, you know, I don't think they're gonna do it though. But I don't know if he's just ready for this level. I think he's gonna have a hard time even with like some pretty low level competition. You know, with Cecilia, just more lower to mid tier guys for him. You know. Okay, on to the prelims. Albert Tumanov defeated Nico Misoke by unanimous decision. Great win for Tumanov here, man. I liked what I saw from him. I liked his takedown defense, too. Misoke went for a lot of takedowns, and he pretty much stuffed all of them. I think he tripped once, but just got back to his feet. Great stuff from him. great, really good hands, you know, with Tumenov. He hits an angle, he has a really good left hook, right cross combination, and he has a really good step and jab as well. He'd throw some 4 and 5 hit combinations with the hands, hit a head kick, and then actually after the head kick would still throw some hands. I like what I see from Tumenov. I see a lot of potential in him. You know, he called out Rick Story. Actually, Story's a really good guy to test prospects. He beat Gunnar Nelson. I thought he should have got the win over Gastelum. But, you know, if you beat Story, you can fight that, like, top 10. You know? So I thought it was good. Nico Musoke, you know, he's good. But defensively, he's just not defensively sound and a standout. He does not... He throws good kicks. He does not set up his kicks well. He throws a lot of single kicks. And in the first round, it was effective, but Tumenov was catching them better and landing off the counter from there. That's the thing with Musoke. He's a good fighter, but his stand-up defense definitely fails him a lot of times. He doesn't always have the best cardio. He is a good grappler as well. But Tumenov, you know, his takedown defense is much improved. He hits relatively hard. Has really good hands. Very curious to see what's next in store for Albert Einstein. With Musoke, good, solid fighter. I always like what I see from the guy. He always surprises me, actually. Got a round over a tough guy, over Tumenov. He was always in the fight. Just more mid-level fighters for him. Next fight after that, Kenny Robertson defeated Sultan Alaev by it said TKO, but I thought it was just knockout in the first round. Here's the thing. Okay, this really applies to welterweight. It's not. Honestly, I don't see this with any other weight division. But there are a group of guys in welterweight that are these utterly blue-collar, gatekeeper wrestle boxers that are tough as nails, that are always going to come at you. And it's really exclusive to welterweight. I say that because Kenny Robertson is one of those guys. Court McGee is another one. Mike Pierce is another one. Ryan LaFleur is another one of those guys, but Ryan LaFleur is a little more cleaner with his overall technique. And George Sullivan is another one of those guys. They're just tough as nails, high pressure, they're always pushing forward, they're always going, they're super game, and they make it a tough fight. And that's why I picked Robertson, because I'm like, oh man, he's fighting one of these the blue-collar gatekeepers is what I call them. And if the blue-collar gatekeeper is your first fight in the UFC, I'm like, I don't know. They're tough guys for prospects. That's why I picked Robertson to win. He performed better than I thought he would. He even got a takedown on Alaev. He was always in his face. His technique is not very good, but he makes up for that with high pressure and always pushing forward and just gameness. That's the thing with Robertson. Countered a very bad spinning back kick with a left hook, and then he got a right cross to the temple. Alaev was out. Good win for Robertson. He is quietly, and he's beating the guys that are kind of like that, like your Alaev. He can be a grind. He's good at beating grinders. Alaev can be a grinder, you know. Ildemar Alcantara. A lot of people actually were like, "Oh no, Ildemar Alcantara is gonna be." I'm like, "Nah, man. Kenny Robertson he's too game to be grinded upon by your Ildemar Alcantaras." And then he beat Thiago Perpetua as well, knocked him out or choked him out, finished him. That's the thing. I'm not saying that Kenny Robertson's some great prospect. He's not, but he has outrun the UFC, and like I said, in welterweight, there's a lot of these guys. There's a lot of Kenny Robertsons. They're like these really tough outs, you know. I would say if Sultan Aliyev or like fought a prospect next that's coming in, I'd be like, oh man, that's pretty tough. Sultan Aliyev's got this really good combat sambo background. Not a bad striker, but you know, it just, some of these blue collar guys are really tough for these guys making their UFC debuts. That's the thing. Good win for Robertson. He's quietly on a win streak, you know. I don't think he's going to be like a top shelf fighter or anything like that, but he definitely deserves a step up in competition, you know. With Aliyev, you know, he's still a good prospect, huge for the weight class, got a combat sambo background, but there's a lot more Kenny Robertsons in the division, you know. I think that Aliyev can definitely get wins in the UFC for sure. He's a good fighter, you know, but as far as him being like some like up and coming prospect, I don't really know. I never saw it in him. But you know, like I said, just more lower to mid tier guys at the division for Sultan Aliyev. Next fight after that, Makwan Amirkhani defeated Andy Ogle by TKO 8 seconds in the first round. So the start of this fight really was Joe Rogan just claiming it was an early stoppage, going so far as saying that a lot of people felt it was an early stoppage. So from the time that the fight ended to the time that Rogan went to the octagon to do the interview, apparently he can read that a lot of people felt it was an early stoppage. And then you hear like Dana White and like all these like, you know, the UFC analysts and whatnot say no, it's not an early stoppage at all. So it was just, oh god, Rogan had such an off night here. What can I say? Amirkhani came in, hit a flying knee, hit like the body area, got Ogle against the cage, uppercutted him, he went down, ground and pound. Ogle's fighting the ref afterwards, and it's done, you know. Amirkhani actually, you know, this guy is charismatic, man. I think if he can really fix his skill set and be a lot less reckless, there's something with him, you know. He's oozing with charisma. I mean, this guy is just oozing charisma. You know, the fear factor comment to like, I'm gonna move to Sweden, say hello. You know, he's just very charismatic guy. Has at the very least a fan-friendly style. He's actually the only guy to beat one of the top prospects in MMA and Tom Duquesnoy. You know, so he can still improve, you know. He's only 26 years old. If he is indeed moving to Sweden, hopefully he trains at All Stars. Great gym. See where it goes, you know. This guy, I'm very curious to see where what happens to him, because I can see him being something of a fan favorite. Just more lower to mid-tier guys at the division for him. And with Ogle, dude, what is this, 4 or 5 losses in a row now? The guy should be cut. I mean, he's losing too much. What can I say? Next fight after that, Nikita Krylov defeated Stanislav Nedkov by guillotine in the first round. You know, Krylov is something of a punchline in MMA for having this terrible fight with Soa Paleli in his first run in the UFC, and then losing by Von Fluchoke. His wins have been very impressive, though. The head kick to follow up ground and pound against Walt Harris, his win over Cody Donovan. And this was actually a pretty impressive guillotine choke over Stanislav Netkov. And actually, what led to the choke looked like a really hard knee and some hard strikes that led to this, that led to the... Then there's the anaconda attack that was transitioned to a guillotine. He's something of a punchline in the UFC, but the guy is only 22, 23 years old. And he looks like he's steadily improving. I think he might be one of the, if not the youngest light heavyweights in the UFC. In a division that is lacking 20-year-olds. The average age of light heavyweight is in the 30s. So finding like young 20-year-olds in the division, I think Corey Anderson's also a really young 20-year-old. They are few and far between, especially in the UFC. So, I gotta look at Krylov as something of a prospect. He looked good here, too, defending takedown well. Striking wasn't too bad. He was getting hit a couple times with those overhand rights. He still has defensive flaws. But, he's a guy that might be able to consistently beat mid-level competition. I think he's probably going to find a problem with a guy like a Pat Cummins or something like that. Maybe even a Latifi. Maybe beats Latifi. I don't know. I'm very curious to see where Krylov goes from here. I have a soft spot for the guy. I've always just been a fan of the guy for some reason. I think it's just because of win or lose, there's always a finish in his fights. But I think you gotta start looking at him as something of not a blue chip prospect by any means, but one of the few up and comers in the UFC light heavyweight division. Just fight for more mid-level competition, maybe even give him a Ryan Jimmo or something like that. He might struggle there. One of the best gatekeepers in light heavyweight is Anthony Parash. Tough fight for Krylov. Parash is a guy that is relentless about getting the takedown, and then he will take you down, pass your guard, take your back, and choke you out. That's his game. He's very good at it. He's very good at doing that to prospects and lower tier fighters. He's just very good at that. But if you want to give him that level of competition, I think it's warranted for sure. With Netkov, it's 2 losses in a row. I think he'll probably get another shot, but he's not that great. He can grind a lot. He wings right hands. Striking is just winging punches. He does hit hard. It's more lower to mid-tier guys at the division for him. Next fight after that, Marbek Taisimov defeated Anthony Christodoulou by knockout in the second round. Utter mismatch. Just Christodoulou did not belong in the same cage as Taisimov. Probably doesn't even belong in the UFC, to be perfectly honest with you. Just on a skill set wise, his striking looked really bad. His fitness did not look good. His reaction to getting hit was very bad. He looked scared. He just wasn't ready for this level of competition. I'm not trying. I'm nothing against him personally. It's just from a sporting aspect. Sorry, it is what it is. Taisimov got to showcase a lot of his skills. Great stuff from him. Even took down Christodoulou, ragdolled him to the ground when he wanted to. Taisimov, he's actually on a 2-fight win streak now, ever since the loss to Prazeres. More mid-level competition for him. He is an up-and-coming prospect that I'd like to see more of. With Christodoulou, he took the fight on short notice. He did the UFC a solid. One more fight against maybe a guy who's coming off a loss that still has potential. Maybe you want to just, and that someone can be a punching bag for, He might want to even change weight classes. Next fight after that, Mirsad Bektic defeated Paul Redman by unanimous decision. This is another one of the fights where Rogan did not look very good. He said that Bektic was a beast and then went to bury him, saying that while it was a great dominating performance, this is not a performance that no one is going to be like, oh, I want to see Bektic again. Don't understand why he was being so harsh to Bektic. He was just having an off night. Bektic beat him. The few moments he was on the feet, he beat him off on the feet, took him down at will. He was always looking to pass guard, always looking to ground and pound. I like how active Bektic is. He is a blue chip prospect. It's more lower to mid-tier guys of the division, for probably mid-level guys at this point for him. He is a very, very good prospect, though. Really strong. His grappling is really good, and his ground pound is actually really good. I mean, he's hitting some pretty good shots from the guard, you know, some good elbows and whatnot, and his active guard passing was really good too. Redman's not a bad fighter, you know. It's just he fought Bektic, one of the best prospects, arguably one of the best prospects in MMA right now. He's a good fighter, just more lower to mid-tier guys in the division for him. And Fight Pass prelims, you have Victor Pesta defeating Konstantin Erikin. Disappointing in the sense that Erikin has earth-shattering power, but this is the UFC level. And Victor Pesta, he fought Ruslan Magomedov, was it? Went 3 rounds with the guy, who's one of the better heavyweight prospects out there. He's not a bad prospect himself, Victor Pesta. He's a tough guy. That's the thing. Striking's not that good. I mean, honestly, his best move, and one of his only moves, is like the knee from the double or single collar tie. That's like his best move. And one of the only moves he utilizes in the stand-up. But he's tough. He is one of the few heavyweights that actually does have a relatively good gas tank. Watch that fight against Ruslan. This is his first fight in the UFC. They went 3 rounds, and for heavyweight, they didn't have this utter gas. They weren't looking like Erikin. So, that's the thing with Erikin, unfortunately. I was pretty hyped to see him in the UFC. I was thinking he'd move up the ladder, but, you can look good on the... It's just a good lesson. You can look really good on the regional scene, knock dudes out in the first round, but especially at heavyweight, guys are just more durable. This narrative's getting more and more apparent as I watch prospects get into the UFC. Guys in the UFC are just more durable than guys not in the UFC. Or, some Bellator guys. The top Bellator guys are durable as well. But they just are, If you watch Dennis Seaver versus Conor McGregor, some of the earlier shots that Conor McGregor was hitting Dennis Seaver would probably drop a lesser fighter than Dennis Seaver. I mean, eventually Dennis Seaver lost by TKO. Eventually he went down. But I'm just saying that, they're just more durable in the UFC. They just are. They can't reach the level that they have and have that level of consistency without being this durable. Shots that would knock a guy out are shots that some guys can take. That's the thing. And Victor Pesta can take Erikin shots, even though he's really good. With that said, I guess more lower to mid-tier guys in the division for both these guys. And finally, Neil Seery defeated Chris Beal by unanimous decision. Chris Beal made his first cut to 125. Yeah, he's a good boxer. His ground game's not too bad. Seery's just infinitely more experienced. He's better conditioned. He is just a good... I'd say Neil Seery's something of a gatekeeper of the division at this point. Fun action fighter too, He had a fun fight. I like this fight. He was on the bottom and still working. It was really good stuff. You know, with Siri just more, and Beal just more lower to mid-tier guys of the division for both. So that's it for my post-fight analysis for UFC on Fox 14. If you have any comments, just leave them below. That's it for MMA for You. Thank you guys very much.